Hi, welcome to Anaprime Recap. You have a legendary ring with a life of its own that needs to be fed, capable of assisting you with incredible powers and producing new spells. We are in the second season of the anime. Welcome to Demon School. Episodes 1, 2 and 3. Iruma wakes up and gets ready for another day of school in the nether world. As he meets his grandfather for breakfast, Sullivan notices that the gluttonous ring his grandson wears on his hand is hungry, so the powerful demon feeds him some of his magic. It doesn't take long before Clara and Asmodeus call their colleague to go to school together. The protagonist then leaves home, and from that moment on his routine begins. As usual, Iruma's two friends fight over who will take his backpack, leading to a small argument between the two. The girl asks the protagonist please countless times, and since he does not deny any request made with these words, he gives in to Clara's will. When they arrive at the school, all the teachers, coordinators and students gather to sing the school anthem. Iruma was so used to singing the song that he no longer cared about the macabre lyrics. As classes begin, the class of misfits is warned about the final exam by Professor Kalego. He tells everyone that they must pass at any cost, or else they will suffer serious consequences. The protagonist, on the other hand, understands that this final exam is a half-yearly exam as it is in the human world. Later, the students have class on the basics of magic, and the teacher explains that that day, everyone would have the task of changing the color of a frog, which was stuck in a pot. She calls Iruma to be the first to perform the activity. The protagonist goes to the front of the room and with the support of his friends follows confidently. His teacher explains that he must say the word Charisol when placing his hands toward the animal. And after this, the young man follows the instructions and adjusts his ring to level 1. After all, this magic is very simple. Iruma successfully completes the magic, causing the green frog to now possess a dark, somber hue. Time passes and the trio of friends now head off to lunch. Asmodeus asks his friend if he would rather eat the lunch demoniac or possessed, but the protagonist replies that it doesn't matter, and again the Wonder Boy starts an argument with Clara and the two of them run to the dining hall. While Iruma was trying to keep up with his classmates, he got a big surprise. The creature that was in his ring was summoned out of nowhere. The young man is frightened. After all, the last time he saw this monster, the situation was horrible. However, now the problem is quite different. The shadow that before only emitted various grunts and nonsense sounds, is now able to talk quietly to its master. When Iruma realizes this, he runs to the pantry and tries to talk to the creature. The shadow tells the young man that he is using his magic in the wrong way, and that if he continues this way, he will no longer be able to help him with his power. The protagonist is still confused, but the monster explains that he has suffered greatly from the latest events. He says that he went a long time without feeding and Iruma released all his energy in just a single summoning. The creature tells his master that from that day on he must be kinder to him and that he must use his magic with class and style. Iruma asks him what it would be like to use magic in the right way, and Shade replies that it is all based on his thoughts. That is, the young man only has to imagine what he wants and so the magic is done. The creature then asks Iruma to transform him into someone with arms, long legs, and a thin waist, wishing he had a body more like that of a demon. The protagonist then fulfills the shadow's wish, but when the creature looks in the mirror to see the result, he realizes that his master has no creativity at all, but at least he managed to fulfill his request. After this, he tells Iruma that his name is Alucred, but you could call him Ali. While the protagonist got to know his partner in magic more, Ameri was looking at a poster about the concert that had recently taken place and realizes more and more that the talented singer Arumi looks a lot like Iruma. Back in the supply room, Alucred asks his master to be bolder and test the Charisol magic on himself. The young man then follows the creature's hint and at first only manages to change the color of his uniform from blue to white. The monster asks him to be more relaxed and to go more into his creativity, so Iruma uses magic again and manages to summon new clothes, such as the Sabnok and Asmodeus costumes. Alucred continues to insist that the young man wears something he never imagined himself wearing. With immense psychological pressure, the protagonist again uses magic. Ameri was passing by the corridor when she saw a spell being conjured, and as she entered the room to scold the individual, she realized that it was Iruma wearing women's clothes. The young man tries to explain himself, but the president doesn't believe a word he says. She runs from the room and leaves the young man feeling extremely ashamed. Later, the misfit young man asks Alucred why he didn't help him clarify the embarrassing situation for his friend, but the creature replies that he is afraid of appearing to other people. After all, he is something unknown and if caught by the demons, would end up being the target of several macabre experiments. The shadow replies that if Iruma helps him to find out what kind of demonic being he is, it might help him with the embarrassing situation he had with his friend. The protagonist then begins his search for Alucred's true identity. The young man wastes no time and goes to consult the most knowledgeable person he knows, his grandfather. But he is disappointed to hear from Sullivan that rings do not speak and have no life of their own. Iruma tries to explain that there is a creature inside the ring, but his grandfather deduces that his grandson is just tired and so opera puts him to sleep. The next day, Iruma tries to understand more about the glutton ring in the institution's library. After several researches and questionings regarding Alacred, the protagonist comes to the conclusion that the shadow gains more powers as he rises in rank. As it has recently risen in rank, the creature has obtained the gift of speaking and leaving the ring at any time. The two are excited about the incredible discovery, as it meant that the two would evolve together as time went on. That day, Iruma sleeps with a sense of achievement at Alacred's side. However, when he wakes up in the morning, he realizes that he has not yet resolved his misunderstanding with Ameri. At the student president's house, the girl is having breakfast, still traumatized by the dream she had about Iruma being the mysterious singer. Her father, who was talking to her through a projector, notices a different expression on his daughter's face, and noticing this, asks if Iruma is the reason for her being like this. Ameri is embarrassed by this and only shows that she is really thinking about her classmate. Henri is infuriated, and with a reference from Samara in the call, the police chief tells his daughter that under no circumstances will he let the two of them start a courtship, being totally against the two students' relationship. At school, the president is totally uneasy about the scene she saw a few days ago. She cannot accept that the brave, fearful and sometimes crazy young man had such alternative habits. The girl is left wondering what Iruma really means to her, just a high school freshman or her first human friend. Because of this, Ameri decides to leave her room for a while to ease the thoughts and ideas that surrounded her head at that moment. Outside the Babel's institution, Karori confronts Iruma about his participation in her concert. The girl tells him that the singer, Arumi, is being acclaimed by everyone. And so, she needs a picture next to this new music star to use as a form of publicity. The young man is embarrassed by the request, refusing to put on a woman's clothes again to take a picture next to his friend. The two get into a small argument, and through this, Karori manages to put a dress on the young man. While in that awkward situation, Iruma is again seen in the distance by Ameri. The protagonist tries to explain himself somehow, but the president just drags him to her office to have a private talk. The girl says that she doesn't want to judge Iruma's preferences, but that she brought him there to talk about the magic apparatus battlers. At that same moment, Clara and Asmodeus, who were together at the entrance of the school, are captured by some coordinators of the institution. In the president's office, the girl explains to Iruma that her battle group will not be able to continue active because they no longer have a representative, and for the club to continue its activities, they would need a third-year leader member or 3 level 4 members. Therefore, the young man is informed that for the time being the club will be closed until the problem is resolved. Ameri says that in order to reopen the magical apparatus battlers, the young man must attend training and also have the permission of the student council. As a result, Iruma must join other battle groups and receive letters of recommendation from their presidents. Asmodeus, due to his incredible abilities, will be transferred to the spell-creating battlers, and Clara with her admirable creativity is placed in the game battlers. After the group is completely broken up, the protagonist is now part of the student council, which he joined on Ameri's direct recommendations. The next day, Iruma gets a taste of the life of a student counselor, waking up very early in the dormitories of the school, performing various tasks that demanded speed, cooperation, and dedication. The young man even witnesses a meeting with the institution's teachers. Kalego observes him, wondering how his student had managed to get a position of this level. When the elite group arrives at the dining hall, Iruma gets a little excited thinking about the food, but to his misfortune, the student advisor's meal at that moment is just beans. Ameri explains that they were fighting the evils of gluttony that month. The president then demonstrates that with dedication and training, everyone would be capable of coordinating the school in the right way, so the girl jumps into the cafeteria and strikes a strong blow to one of the students, knocking him unconscious. Everyone is astonished at Ameri's sudden attitude, but she says that she only did what was necessary. That student was entering the evil cycle and due to his anger, was about to devour another classmate. Only the girl had noticed the dangerous situation at that moment. Her perception and senses were extremely sharp. Later, Iruma talks to her in her living room. The protagonist receives a visit from his grandfather, but even though he is the director of the institution, Ameri does not let the director spoil her grandson at that moment, sending him away back to his home. Now alone in her office, the president asks Iruma to remove his clothes. The young man is embarrassed and somewhat suspicious of his leader's words. The girl explains that those clothes were not appropriate for them to start doing what they always did when they were alone. The protagonist understands the situation, and so the two begin to read the romantic manga as usual. When they are at the end, Iruma realizes that Ameri has two types of personalities, one of which is that of student president, where she is always strict, cautious and cold. And the other when they started to read the manga, being a sweet, innocent and happy little girl. The next day, Iruma tries not only to hold on to Ameri's cute personality, but to do his best to conquer the confinement of her colder side. In this way, the young man performs all the tasks he had done before, only this time with a lot of dedication and focus. The young man surprises even the teachers with his determination. In the cafeteria, the protagonist continues to follow the lessons of the student council, once again eating only one bean at mealtime. He keeps talking to his teammates, and through this, he begins to bond more with the group. Ameri notices all this from afar and is proud of Iruma's perseverance. The president is then called to report to the broadcast battlers room. After hearing the call, the girl goes there with all her innocence, but we find out that a mysterious figure was responsible for calling her to an empty room. When she enters the place, she comes across someone wearing a black cape, and when she asks if this person needs help, the mysterious being sprays a kind of perfume on the girl. Some time later, the student council discovers that the broadcast battlers never requested the president in their room. Startled by the revelation, everyone rushes to the place where Ameri was called. When they enter the room, they observe the unconscious girl on the floor. As they try to wake her up, Ameri awakens with a fearful expression and wonders why she is wearing such vulgar clothes. The next day, all the students are impressed by the president's change of personality. The leader who used to show discipline and strictness is now just a sentimental maiden. Clara even thinks that this could be Ameri's demonic twin sister, but Asmodeus says that this hypothesis is flawed, since the girl had no sister. The Wonder Boy wants to help his best friend solve the mystery that happened to the president, but he is stopped by his new group of battlers, who take him to train new magics. The student council remains thoughtful about what might have happened to their leader. Later, the girl goes through a consultation with one of the teachers and yet no one understands what caused the sudden change of mood in the girl. The teacher explains that Ameri has neither lost her memories nor suffered any physical attack, but her new personality has been created through a powerful magic, which even she cannot identify. Thus, the only hope to bring back the real president is to make her perform the activities she used to do in her daily life. Even with this recommendation, the girl now does everything calmly and very delicately, totally the opposite of her previous version. All of this has frustrated her friends, because everyone was used to Ameri promoting the leadership. The group then decides to stick to their decisions and support the president at all costs, also searching for the person responsible for having caused that tragedy with Ameri. As they were walking down the hallway, they noticed that someone was in the student council room. As they approached to inquire, they discovered that it was Renov Lomier, the leader of the disciplinary battlers. He had his eye on the position of student president for a long time. The demon gives a show of presentation. He is very energetic and romantic with his words, but on the other hand he is fearful and sometimes clueless. He tells the student council that he had nothing to do with the president's problem, but would like to take advantage of the situation to propose a battle called the dissolution election. This was a vote between the students and teachers to decide whether the student council would be maintained or dissolved. Usually this election takes place when the student council does not prove to be useful in the school. With Ameri's delicate situation, Renov takes full advantage of this to take over as president. He claims that the dissolution election is something that cannot be denied, so it would happen anyway. The next day, Renov is searching for people who think the same way as he does. Using his familiar skill charisma, he draws the attention of everyone passing nearby. He promises a number of positive changes for the students, starting with having the number of school days, full outdoor classes, and food championships. Everyone is thrilled with his promises, but when asked if he could really do it, he simply says no. With this response, the students begin to leave the premises, but he informs them that he will do his best to make the Babel's institution a more fun and enjoyable place for everyone. With these words, he wins the approval of the public. Ameri, on the other hand, was also performing her presentation to remain the student president, but the girl was wrapped up in her newfound shyness and embarrassment, not even able to pronounce in her speech. Observing the situation, Iruma finally decides to help her. For this, he would need to call for reinforcements. The young man tells Asmodeus and Clara everything that has happened, recruiting his friends for the mission, since they were not doing well in their new groups. The protagonist even thinks about calling his teacher Kalego to help him, but discards the idea. The man would only fight with him even more. Ameri meets with Iruma and tells the young man that she needs to talk to him as soon as possible. The protagonist waits for the president in her office, and while he is alone and thoughtful, Alacred comes out of the ring and starts talking to the young man. The creature says that it is willing to help its master with the complicated situation. The shadow informs him that there are several types of spells, and some are more effective on certain users than others. For example, A student who uses fire spells is far more vulnerable against a student who uses ice spells. That said, Alucard states that the magic played on Ameri is about to end, but there is still something inside her that is making it impossible for the effect to close completely. The girl enters the room and Alucard immediately goes back inside the ring. Ameri returns in her normal clothes and states that she has something of utmost importance to tell Iruma. What is this important information that Ameri has to tell? Who was responsible for bewitching the student president? So, what did you think of this anime? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like it and subscribe for more anime recaps. See you next time.